Gaming journalists are all massive jokes within the industry. Gamers love to point and laugh at these people because they truly believe that they are better than the average consumer, even though they're not. And recently, Alyssa Mercante put up her Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC review, and it was filled with, her crying about how she has been, quote, the victim of a harassment campaign, and gamers are not buying it, absolutely destroying her for writing this and Kotaku for allowing it to be published. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, make sure to check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I love Elden Ring. I cannot wait for the DLC to release, and I am going to be live streaming it on release day. I just finished my full, complete playthrough of Elden Ring, preparing for the DLC. It's my third playthrough, and now we're all looking at the reviews, getting extremely excited because it is now the highest rated video game DLC to launch, overtaking The Witcher 3. But of course, there are going to be some mediocre reviews published for this, and while we have seen some journos cry about the difficulty and say it's way too hard and I can't give this a perfect score or even close to it because of the difficulty, and they're simply admitting that they're bad at games. Alyssa is doing not only that in this article, but also crying about herself. It was basically a diary entry where she talks about harassment and about how over the past few months she's faced so much backlash from gamers, which is hilarious seeing as she's releasing this article. And it's articles like this that are the reason why she is so disliked, because she makes everything about herself. I'm not going to read through the entire thing, but this is at the very beginning, and you can already tell the tone of this quote review. It says, in the real world, I have mostly avoided the ire of homophobes and misogynists in the games industry, writing an article that temporarily shakes them up before fading into relative obscurity once Reddit refreshes. She said, outside of the lands between and the Shadow Realm, I have spent nearly 4 months as the subject of a near endless harassment campaign. It feels at times like logging on for a day of work is akin to walking through a boss store over and over again. And I did a previous video on this. It will be linked down below. But it seems that Alyssa took it a little bit personally, since she direct messaged me saying, when are you going to stop obsessing over me, girl? Just curious. And I responded with something very, very simple, saying, whatever could you possibly mean? I'm simply doing my job, which is talking about the gaming industry and those within it. I don't know how covering, quote, angry misogynists in an article relates to the Elden Ring DLC, so I simply covered your article. I was thinking about taking a page out of your playbook and doing a review on Shadow of the Erdtree where I talk about how I relate to the Tarnished, because they breathe. If you just did your job and stopped writing about things that don't relate to games, maybe you wouldn't receive so much backlash. Gamers don't want to read about your narcissism. I mean, if she simply went to writing game guides and fair reviews that are not filled to the brim with her crying about herself, yeah, I don't think that she would be facing so much backlash. And she's clearly doing this in order to rile people up, in order to get people talking about her, because she's so desperate for attention. But of course, on this post in Kotaku's original tweet thread about this, she is getting blasted by people. Melanie Mack said, this is rich coming from her and her obsession with many of us in the gaming space. She's just mad because you exposed the coward she is. And by the way, she says that I'm obsessing over her when I simply made a video about a public article, and then she took it to direct messages to ask me why I'm clearly obsessing over her. So I don't know. I mean, it seems that she's watching my content and checking out what I'm doing online, which is hilarious. Mark Kern, aka Grum, said the projection is real. Hail the Lore said completely destroyed her. Well done, Vara. Other people are saying, holy, you absolutely killed her, dude. Ouch, burn. When attempting to understand people who have narcissistic personality disorder, don't. Yeah, while Alyssa definitely seems to, be all about herself, a lot of people are questioning if she does actually have some serious problems because there's no way a level headed human being would do this time and time again. And going over to the Kotaku post, gamers are even asking why this got published in the first place. And I agree, I understand in a review, trying to make it personalized and give your genuine experience and maybe viewpoints on the product that other people would not. But at the same time, it's not a place to, complain about your time in the gaming industry. We're not talking about a therapy session here. And it's literally just thrown in there saying, oh, well, because I've faced harassment, what she calls at least harassment, which is in most cases simply criticism, because these people don't know the difference between criticism and harassment. Oh, well, going through a boss store over and over feels like real life because I've made people angry and they're harassing me, she says. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous. Even repeating it back to myself, never mind having to write it, edit it, look it over, 3, 4, 5 times. People are questioning, where's the review for the Elden Ring DLC? This is just some loser's blog post. This isn't a review, it's a Tumblr post. Banger review. Why does your reviewer have main character syndrome? Who wrote this? Alyssa Classic. People are even saying, what in the name of Tumblr is this? I mean, there is nobody on this thread that is reacting positively to this. The only people I've seen are a handful of individuals who retweeted my initial screen cap of her DM saying, oh, you guys have been obsessing over her for months. And oh my God, she just added personal flair to this review. But on the actual thread itself, I don't see anybody defending her. And even the few, examples of defense I have seen being ran for Alyssa, they are very, very few and far between. And of course, this is just yet another example of why so many people do not like video game journalists because they're really just activists who are using their video game platforms to push their own personal and political agendas. And of course, this just highlights the absolute state of the video game industry because you have so many people like Alyssa getting access to the Elden Ring DLC early when there are channels on platforms like YouTube with hundreds of thousands of subscribers who are not getting access to, review codes early. I mean, she even admits in this article that she's never really played Souls likes. She can't compare it to other Souls likes. And of course, I'm sure Kotaku simply got a code and then whoever at the company gives out the codes was just like, oh, who's not on a project right now? But that's not a good way to do things. That is not what should be happening. The best person for the job, in this case, somebody who actually plays Souls likes, knows Souls games, played Elden Ring in its totality before multiple times, actually understands the lore and how everything weaves together, that is the person who should be reviewing it. And if you actually want me to read these reviews, you have to be giving the codes to people who even have an inkling of an understanding of the story and the gameplay and why things are the way that they are within this game. So, of course, Kotaku is proving yet again that they are completely irrelevant and they are desperate to try to stay afloat, and they're publishing articles that they know are going to get a few extra hate retweets. But clearly, that strategy is not working out well for them, seeing as they're dying and people like Alyssa are only continuing to damage their reputation. But that's all that I had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.